I'll see you guys in the dark.
2 years ago, when I was a sophomore in high school, I started dating someone. His name was Grayson. Our relationship was very explosive and toxic, but that is not what the story is primarily about. Grayson's dad always gave me the creeps. I believe in a way he was a pathological liar. Here's some background. Tim is really full of himself. He believes he's established his own businesses, thinks he's come up with innovative war tactics the government is using thanks to him. I also have reason to believe he was dishonorably discharged from the military. Grayson always told me that he left the Air Force to come home and be with his wife. He doesn't have his uniform. He doesn't have any paperwork regarding this. However, leaving because your wife misses you isn't a valid excuse in the military. At first, it seemed pretty innocent, such as giving me and my mom his cell phone number in case we needed to be in touch. Grayson was always bad about ignoring texts from his dad in school, so I'd find him, tell him his dad was waiting outside for him. But it kind of got weird. He would go out of his way to text me and my mom for non-Grayson related matters. He would often invite me over when Grayson was not over to do things such as his laundry, or to bake cookies, or to even wait until he gets home to surprise him. My mom never let me, nor did I really want to go because I knew this was kind of weird. Every time Grayson and I were on the phone, his dad would start saying really mean things to him, yelling at him, calling him retarded, stupid, etc. It always made me uncomfortable because I'd come around and his dad would act very different. He started treating any time me and Grayson together like we were on play dates, kind of like we were children. He would often remark about me being his stepdaughter to strangers, and this man would talk. He would talk to anyone and everyone, regardless if they seemed up to the conversation, which made it really awkward for us, because Grayson would have his arm wrapped around me, or would be affectionate, and him saying that would make things awkward for us. I remember trying to tell Grayson several times that his dad really freaked me out, and my parents were not happy about his dad either. He didn't really understand this. He told me he had lost his daughter at birth, and that maybe him acting this way was his coping mechanism. Grayson's dad, Tim, had recently gotten close with a neighbor at the time in his apartment complex. She had a daughter. Kelly was 6, maybe 7 years old at the time. Her mom was a deadbeat, would only come around Tim whenever she needed money to get cigarettes or drugs. But she did not hesitate to let Kelly spend several hours alone with Tim, letting Tim pick her up from school. I remember one specific time that he brought Kelly along to pick Grayson up from my house. It was cold outside. He sent her to my door in pajamas. We had been watching a scary movie, and when she saw Grayson, she excitedly said, "Tim is taking me to see Moana." It was 11 p.m. It was really late, and I was extremely bewildered. Kelly eventually got taken away from her mother and was in a foster home. Tim would try to get me or Grayson to go to the door and leave stuff for her to have, from Tim. Then he eventually even tried to get custody of her, regardless that there was no blood relation or any credentials that would allow him to do so. Another time, around the Super Bowl, he had come up to the door with a beer bottle in hand. He doesn't even ask to come in. He just kind of forces the door open and comes in the bathroom to pee. He then takes Grayson, beer bottle in hand, and drives home. Here are a list of other things that I remember happening, but it's been over a few years, so there definitely is more, but I cannot recall every detail. One time, he texted my mom and inquired about me and Grayson. We had been arguing, and we had argued a lot. His dad then jokingly asked my mom, "Is she on her period?" I get it. It is a crude joke, and many guys joke about it. But imagine someone texting you and asking on your daughter's behalf. Another time, me and Grayson were giggling and making jokes in the back seat. I remember his dad always talking about me and Grayson getting married. I was a sophomore. He was a freshman. So we thought about it, yeah. But was it ideally going to happen? Not really. Grayson then said something along the lines of getting married. I don't think so. His dad then says, "Well, if you don't marry her, then I will." I was shocked that something like that would even be said. I was at this point very weirded out. He asked me to go out to Golden Corral with him and Grayson. I knew Grayson was at his mom's house, but for some reason, I thought he had already come home and was with his dad. I got into his dad's car. I was just in the car with him and two other older men. I started furiously texting him. I asked Grayson where he was and if he was actually going. He was asleep. He didn't even know his dad had come to get me. His mom was pissed off. She chewed his dad out on the phone while it was on the car speaker, and I was sitting behind his seat. She said he needed to stop with this weird behavior. We go inside the restaurant, and I'm quiet. I'm just waiting for Grayson to text me. I am upset and pretty confused. He finally comes in. He was mortified. I wanted so badly to just go home, but I didn't want to make a scene by leaving, so I just tolerated it. Last and final argument ensued. It was because Grayson started sexting girls. Grayson made it very clear he did not permit me to talk to other boys. I unadded every boy I had on social media. So this really, really distraught me. After everything our relationship went through, there were other signs that I ignored too, about how he'd surround himself with girls when I wasn't around, and how he'd touch on other girls in his gym class. But this was the final and last time I wanted to be walked all over. I snitched on him to his dad. I didn't explicitly say that Grayson had sexted girls. I didn't want him to be in legal trouble, but I did ask him to delete my number and told him I wouldn't come around anymore. His dad told me I was being unreasonable, and that his son was a gentleman, and that he raised his son well enough that his own son wouldn't cheat. It was a lot more drama than I needed. So at the end of it all, I blocked him on everything. Tim started trying to reach out to me through his Facebook account, through his business account. I often just blocked him and didn't tell my mom because I felt like it was old news. A few months ago, I reached out to Grayson. He had taken my virginity. I was embarrassed to tell him that I had an STI and that he needed to be checked. A week or two later, I get a letter in the mail. His dad, Tim, decided to reach out to me. Keep in mind, me and Grayson had only talked about the STI stuff, nothing more. We had been apart for 2 years. I still lived at the same address. I suppose he had told his dad he needed testing done, and his dad took it upon himself to discipline me, now who is 18 years old. I'll retype a few of the things said on his card. The front of the card says, "Which first, pout or cry?" with a little girl in pigtails on the front pouting. Opening the card, it originally says, "Miss you." Written all over the card, "You are too smart for irresponsible behavior. Respect yourself. Respect your body. Reach for the stars. Achieve your goals. Get your education. Don't blow it now. Hang on, baby girl. If you need me, just call. If you need a ride or someone to talk to, your friend Tim. Picture your future. Present tense. Achieve your dreams. Dear, respect yourself. Don't throw yourself at boys. If a guy truly loves you, he will hold on to you. There are many diseases out there. Some are incurable. Reserve sex for marriage. Do right by God. Don't become a baby mama. You are smart, pretty, nice, and sincere. Don't let the world change you. I wasn't the one to open the card. My mom was. And she had recognized the name. She called the cops and had them investigate it further. The cops even remarked that this behavior was strange and should be looked into. I don't really know all of the details. I was working when all of this went down. We still have the card in my mom's nightstand as evidence just in case this were to go any further. His older brother, Tyler, works at a bar-type restaurant we frequent a lot. He and I don't really make small talk. We act like we don't know each other. But the way he looks at me, I can tell in a way he feels sorry. I truly empathize with him, because he too has a long-term girlfriend, and I can imagine his dad doing the same thing to them. It's gotten so bad that one of his older sons, who has his first grandbabies, is moving away to get away from this guy. His wife doesn't like Tim, and even he can see through the man his dad proclaims to be. I have other reasons to believe that maybe Tim isn't mentally sound, and he uses Catholicism to back up his reasoning for anything he does wrong in life. I think maybe the reason why our relationship failed was because Grayson's dad mistreated him, and going to his mom's house was an escape from that. I think that this is truly why Grayson treated me how he did, and it breaks my heart for him, but I am glad that I am well out of that relationship, well out of having to deal with his dad, and in a brand new relationship with a family that adores me. While this isn't extreme, I really, really hope that I will never ever be involved with Tim or affiliate with any of the members of his family again. I have had a lot of questions regarding the whole STI thing, so to clear things up, I will say it here. I did have sex with Grayson without being in any relationships. I didn't have my first appointment until after a while. My STI was symptomatic, so therefore I didn't realize anything was wrong. I don't know if Grayson gave it to me. I don't know how long I had it afterwards. I don't know when I got it. I just know I had it. My OBGYN asked me to notify anyone I was involved with and everyone who I was with. Going back to Grayson, as he was the first guy that I had been with. Someone read this and asked me how old I was. I wanted to clarify that I was 15, maybe 16 throughout the entirety of this relationship with Grayson. I met him in high school when we were both 17. He was my first serious boyfriend, and I was naive. Boys had never paid much attention to me before, so it was nerve-wracking, and I didn't really know about any red flags. We didn't really have much money for dating, so we would hang out in a converted shed/house in his backyard. He used to rant about how all women are whores, that his dream was to be a serial killer. He would actually watch documentaries about different prisons to see which one he would like the best if he were ever caught. He constantly complained about his ex cheating on him and breaking up with him. He had bad acne, which he was convinced everyone stared at. He started insisting I wear very loose clothing, even complaining if the wind blew against me, causing my breasts to stick out through the fabric. He'd get pissed if I accidentally touched his face or looked at him wrong. He would threaten to hurt me, and himself if I ever left him. His father had been abusive towards him, once right in front of me. He was paranoid and refused to let me in the house, even to use the bathroom. He was also convinced my parents were super rich and looked down on them, and I was just with their son to annoy their family. We were together for a few years and had grown apart. I wanted to move up in my life, go to college, work, etc., but he was convinced all of that was sinful and wrong. He would much rather live off the government. He was still not over his ex, still convinced all women were whores. He was starting to drink constantly. I finally decided to break up with him, which went over surprisingly well. Except for, of course, for his dad trying to convince him he needed to sue me for half the stuff in our apartment, all of which I bought, and demand alimony because, clearly I was super rich. X refused to do that and moved back into his parents' home, where he still lives 13 years later. Well, several years passed. I had met a new man, and we had dated for a while and were engaged. We decided to move back to my home state, and my parents allowed us to stay at their house while we looked for an apartment. We were happily spending our time working, wedding planning, and house searching. Our street is set off from the main roads, so no one really goes down it unless they are living there or visiting someone living there. A few weeks after we started staying there, my mom had returned from home, running some errands. She mentioned seeing X walking down the street. I thought that it was odd, but figured he might have just taken the road to go to the library, as he hated walking on main roads, because all the drivers were judging him. We also saw him a few more times after that. One day, my fiancée was out at work. I had the day off, and was at home starting to pack things. We had found an apartment, and would be moving in the following week. I took a break to take the dog out in front to use the bathroom. Our back fence had been knocked down in a storm a few days before. As the dog is doing her thing, I see him approaching. "Hey, what are you doing here?" "Well, I've seen your car around, and I've been thinking, we've both been with other people. You had your fun. We can be back together again." "Nope. I broke up with you. I'm engaged now. I'm happy, so please just leave." I take the dog back inside, lock the door. I watched as he waited outside the door for a few minutes before he walked off. My mom returned home a little while later, and I explained to her what happened. It upset her. She picked up her phone and called him. She told him not to come around anymore, and that it was very inappropriate. Things were quiet for a couple of years, at least until I changed my Facebook profile picture to a photo of just me instead of the previous one featuring my husband and me. That's when he added me and started messaging me. I ignored them and blocked him. He started making new profiles, each one advocating harming women, him talking about hurting himself, and random women. I kept blocking. He seemed to give up after a bit, as I stopped hearing anything except for the occasional random message and block. Husband and I had a couple of kids. I decided to stay home with them to save on childcare costs, since it had just cost more to put both in daycare than I was earning. We have a neighbor who runs a daycare, and she offered to take them for a day, just so that I could have a break from taking care of kids. We agreed, and I would drop them off on their day and try to get things done. Well, one day while we were at the daycare, I go into the grocery store, and there is X walking down out the door as I walk in. I could feel him glaring at me while I pretend not to notice him. I do my shopping, keeping an eye out. I ask an employee to please come to my car with me because I didn't feel comfortable. Fortunately, X had left. I returned home and try to put it out of my mind as I continue on with the rest of my day. That night, I had several messages from him on Facebook, indicating that he saw me and I was alone at the store, that he needs a girlfriend. I block him again and hear nothing more on the topic. A few months pass. I'm driving down the road to my apartment on my way home from work when I pass X's father riding a bike down the road. He was coming the opposite way that I was driving. As I approach the turn to my complex, I see that X's father had turned around and is slowly riding his bike behind me. I turn into the complex, and he does the same, stopping his bike and watching me. I continue driving and pull into a small alcove hidden from his view. I see him slowly riding the bike, looking around for my car before turning back around and going the way that he came. I left the area and went back to my job and waited a little while. I returned home and talked to my husband about what had happened. We were not sure if we can file a restraining order against both at this point, but we are planning on moving very soon. When I met her, I was in a tough spot with my girlfriend. We had a lot of fights because I was working with a female artist who was illustrating one of my stories, and she was very jealous about it. She was starting to consider the possibility of making me choose between my career and her, and this damaged my commitment to our relationship. One day after a fight, I left her place and went to the university campus because I had a seminar to attend, and I ended up talking with this pretty girl who was waiting too. She had very white skin, big brown eyes, short hair. It barely covered her neck. She was a petite, cute, adorable thing. She was also smoking hot. She had big breasts, small waist, and killer legs. I'm serious, guys. I hate her now, and I fear her. But even now I can totally admit she was stunningly beautiful. She was an exchange student from Spain, so her accent was interesting to me as well. Without even thinking much about it, I ended up hitting on her. Her name was beautiful too. I will call her Angel in this. We talked a lot. She was smart, interesting, and very flirty. I liked that. I was under a lot of stress because my girlfriend had no trust in me whatsoever. I just kinda ended up thinking, she thinks this poorly of me no matter how hard I try, whatever, and went all the way in with what she thought of me. We ended up skipping the seminar to make out in the parking lot until they were closing. Then I drove her home. There she had her roommate, who wasn't home, and invited me to come in. We shared the most amazing night that I ever had, and after that, we shared many more nights and days together. She had this incredible self-made book of herbs with true samples taped over the pages. She gave them fake names and invented magical properties to each of them. She was inventing her own fictional world plant by plant and animal by animal before even starting to write the first chapter of the story. As I said before, she was really smart, and never made a step without being sure she was ready to do it. Aside from her talents and intelligence, she was also a huge nympho. After our first night together, she started sending me nudes and dirty messages between classes. She insisted that we had sex in campus a lot. We even filmed some of our encounters in the bathrooms and my car. And to be honest, I loved it. This was something that never bothered me about her. I adored it. This would end up backfiring. I broke up with my girlfriend about a week later, but I didn't tell her about Angel. That's something I would regret as well. All I said to her is that I was done with her game of making me choose between her and one of my dreams. Up until this point, Angel seemed like the perfect girl to have a casual relationship with. She was pretty, smart, and fun. But one night at my place, she asked me something weird while we were doing it. Would you be jealous if I looked at another guy? I didn't answer, but she insisted almost immediately. I asked you something, she said, while pushing me, forcing me to stop. I asked her why she was asking something like that all of a sudden, and then explained that while we were eating before at the mall, I stared at a girl, and that it was very disrespectful because I was with her. Now I swear to everything that is sacred in this world, I have no idea what she is talking about. I don't recall staring at someone other than her, nor did I get why she would be mad about it. She then proceeded to demand an apology, so I apologized, trying to avoid any conflict. It wasn't a huge deal after all. She then nodded, kissed me with satisfaction, and then gave me head. It was the first of many weird moments. One time I asked if she would end up having a threesome, and she said that it was a very bad idea because she had very physical feelings, and she was happy with just loving me and didn't want to love anyone else. This was incredibly sudden. We knew each other for like 3 weeks at the time. After that, she started introducing herself to my closest friends in campus as my girlfriend, even though we weren't officially dating. When I told a friend about this, he said, "You're sleeping with her. Suck it up and give her the satisfaction." So I just did it. Even after a couple of weird things, she was still a very interesting person to spend time with, and she was still very beautiful. But it was just the beginning. She started to watch my every move. She knew where I was, even when I didn't tell her anything, because she followed every friend of mine in every social media. Not just that, she started asking me, "Why did you fave that slut's tweet?" And it totally freaked me out because nobody in this city knows I have a Twitter account. I didn't use my name or any personal information, but she followed me, apparently with a fake account because I set my profile private. And she still knew about everything that I tweeted, even asked, "Are you trying to hide me, my love?" I still maintained my relationship with her because she was pretty and we had a lot of sex. I feel like a total idiot while telling you guys this. I feel ashamed to be so easy. Time went on, the semester ended, and I had to travel with my family to the wedding of a cousin of mine to the other side of the country. Of course, she went with me. My mother loved her because she was a good listener and would make a big deal out of every single conversation. But my cousins, being of my age or closer, saw something weird in her almost immediately. She wasn't able to catch them the same way she catched my mother. So eventually, she started trying to reduce the time we spent with my family at the hotel or in the city. She would often take me to her room to have sex while we were in the swimming pool, or just hanging out at someone else's place. Of course, I didn't notice because, well, sex. And then the wedding happened. Beautiful ceremony, amazing food, good drinks and all. But when my family photo took place, and a cousin of mine insisted that no girlfriends and no boyfriends were allowed in the pictures, she got somehow angry at me. But even then, she was pretty calm. The real tragedy happened when the happy wife threw the bouquet, and the groom threw the garter. She was really close to catching the bouquet, but she didn't. And when it was the turn of the guys to catch the garter, we all agreed to run away from it instead of trying to get it. You know, just as a joke. Eventually, we did try to catch the thing, but I didn't get it. When I came back to our table, she said to me, "I can't believe you did this to humiliate me," and then left. I ran after her, but she wouldn't stop until a few blocks later. She was crying a lot, and she said I did that because I didn't want to be with her, because I was still in love with my ex. I never mentioned my ex to her. This was the first time she ever mentioned it. but she certainly had her present in her mind. She said that she knew she called me, which she did a week before, but we didn't talk about getting back together or anything like that. And then she said she wanted to go home. We were hours apart from home, 23 hours on the road to be exact, but she insisted. She didn't want me to see my family, or me, so I took her to the airport and spent $400 to send her home, because I cared about her and I didn't want her to travel alone on a bus. She told me to get back at the wedding, but I didn't. I stayed with her until she left at 5:40 a.m. Back to the hotel as the sun was rising up, and couldn't sleep thinking about what the hell had just happened. It took me that long to realize she wasn't fine. She had several problems, and that I had to break up with her immediately. We didn't talk at all until I got back from my trip. She called me as soon as I got there, told me that we needed to talk, and I agreed. She insisted that we met at her place. She apologized and told me I was her everything. She told me about her sick sister back in Spain and how both their parents were dead. She told me that I was her true family, and I told her that we needed to break up. She then started to kiss me while touching me, and, well, she broke me. We ended up doing it one last time. After we finished, I put my clothing back on, told her that she couldn't manipulate me like that anymore, that we were done, and that I wished her well. That night I got a message from her. I wish you happiness, but you won't get it, because I will destroy you. She was supposed to stay there a whole year, but left the next semester, and didn't say anything about it to me. I thought she just wanted to let things go and start rebuilding her life somewhere else. 4 months pass. In that time, I start to talk things out with my ex, not Angel, but the other one, and we started to slowly work our problems out. She admitted she was being unfair and promised to control her jealousy, and we started dating again, stronger than ever. But as soon as we changed out our relationship status on Facebook, things fell apart. Angel sent my girlfriend several screenshots of our conversations of that week before I broke up with her. She proved that I was cheating on her with many texts, and even sent her a video of a BJ she gave me in the car. These conversations were deleted a long time ago, but she had backups of everything she had said and done in the past, prepared in case she had to destroy me. But also sent several videos of us having sex on campus and rectory from an anonymous email, so I was expelled. I received a WhatsApp message 1 week later from a Spanish number. It said, "I told you so." So I lost my girlfriend and my rights to study in the best university of my city, and several more. And I would like to say it was because of her, but ultimately, those were my own failures. Those were victories I let her have. Turns out that she lived her life just like she was building her own fantasy world, carefully and meticulously, making sure she had control over every little detail around her. So Angel, you might be the smartest person I have ever met. You might be the most gorgeous girl alive, and you might have fallen from the sky, but I don't want to meet you ever again. Guys, yes, I know cheating was wrong. This happened years ago, so even if you try to insult me, it won't have any effect on me. I'm at peace with everything that happened, but I also really wanted to share. I do feel bad for my past decisions, but I've moved on. Also, I'm not looking for sympathy. The purpose of this story is to share stories of people you don't want to see ever again, and that is just what this is. My husband dated a beauty queen title holder, whom he broke up with long before we ever met. However, I was the first serious girlfriend, I'm now his wife, that he ever dated after her. And once she knew about me, our lives became a nightmare for a while. I guess she always figured he would go back to her because she was so beautiful. On top of being crazy, she was also a narcissist. Anyways, we start dating, and the phone calls start. She would call over and over at all hours of the night, forcing my husband to switch off his phone. So it escalated. I started getting flat tires on my car, then random dents in my car appear. I had no proof this was her, of course, but it seemed too coincidental. Then she started calling and threatening my husband that if he doesn't give her money, she will call the police. report that he abused her. My husband was worried because, while he wasn't guilty of anything, it would be her word against his, and his reputation would be ruined. She approached me at a party when I came out of the bathroom. Ambushed me is more like it. "Where's your man? You should keep an eye on your man," she lured in her heavy accent. It was intimidating because she is over 6 foot tall. I'm only 5'5", and in heels, she's about 6'5". No joke. She definitely towered me. I ignored her and walked away, but she followed me, not saying anything, just kept up the pace and walked beside me, sort of bending forward to be more on eye level with me, looking straight at me with wide, crazy eyes, but walking, grinning maniacally. She was like a caricature of herself. After that, we stopped going to events if we had any inkling that she would be there. However, we did attend a funeral for a mutual friend. At the reception, I was talking to a couple that I knew, and she walked right up to me, stood up with us. She stood there as if part of the conversation. Just not talking, though. Just standing there, listening in our intimate group of 3. Completely crazy. I did not want to cause a scene at a funeral, so I walked back to my husband, who had been talking to the man's widow. That was the final straw. We got a lawyer who sent her a cease and desist. It didn't faze her at all. She would call my husband from private numbers and say, "Hi there, it's me," in a sing-song voice like nothing had ever happened. 3 cease and desist letters later, she was still calling. We were finally able to get a restraining order on her. I used to be so intimidated by her. She was tall, blonde, and statuesque, the epitome of a beauty queen. However, as I got to realize who she was, I realized she was the ugliest person I have ever met. When I see a picture of her, all I see are mean, cold eyes. I don't see any beauty whatsoever. I used to think beauty pageants were more like Skin Deep, that contestants were judged for more than just their looks. In this case, I definitely was wrong. I also found out we were not the only ones who had to take a restraining order out against her. We haven't seen her, although we still, to this day, continuously get fake Instagram follower requests that I know are definitely her. I know this because she is dumb enough to always have herself as a follower, or her brother, or follow random people in our lives. My husband's colleagues, my mom, who lives in a different city, etc. I don't know why she won't let go. My husband and I have a baby now, and I'm always vigilant. I truly don't know what she is capable of. She once had the world at her feet, and a platform that would have given her opportunities the rest of us might not ever have. But she just wanted money with minimal work involved. She cheated people and used them. Last I heard through the rumor mill that she had become an escort and now lives in a shelter. Clearly, there are mental issues at play here, but she was a terrible opportunist person long before all of that. When I was about 13, I had not long broken up with this girl who had supposedly had a psycho family. One of this girl's family was a close friend who was supposedly obsessed with her. I was invited out with my friends after school one day, and this boy latched on. Everybody told me to come out, and that he wanted to make amends, and he understood why I did what I did, etc. Being the pushover I am, I went out, and we hung out in parks, and smoked, and drank. As it started to get dark, I decided to go home. I felt uneasy being around him, and he started acting all weird, talking about fights he had been in, and bragging about bashing some guy's face in with his fists in school. Because of this, I left. I didn't feel safe whatsoever. The next day, my best friend and all the other kids that were out that night came into school and told me that got worse after I left. Apparently, they had drank some more. He started waving his huge kitchen knife around and was telling everybody how he was going to stab me in the stomach for breaking that girl's heart. Let me point out that I only know details of this because I have a relative in the local police force. My dad made us move because he knew where I lived. I continued getting threats on social media, though, until about a year or two later, when it was in the paper and was spread around the town that he had broken into somebody's house and stabbed a man and then slit his wrist in the man's bathtub. They found high amounts of cocaine and cannabis in his system, along with a lot of alcohol. The elderly neighbors phoned the police when they heard some commotion, and they hadn't seen the man leave for work. They found him barely conscious, and he is now in a psych ward. This was supposedly over the girl yet again. I think I dodged a bullet there. In 2016, my cousin Anna met a man named Jonathan. They were extremely happy together, to the point that in 2018 they got engaged. Anna, however, cheated on Jonathan shortly after with a man named Link. This was poorly solved by an idea to have a polyamorous relationship with Link. As time went on, Link turned into a horrible housemate and boyfriend, so Anna and Jonathan decided it was time to remove him. This proved extremely difficult. Anna started by asking him to leave, and it didn't work. He refused to go. The landlord also refused to evict him due to him doing no wrong. They decided a reason to leave, and I was tasked with removing him. I'm a complete pacifist, but I'm also 6'4" and scared the fuck out of him. I told him to leave, and after I had a short conversation with the landlord, who he had called, he was forced to leave via eviction notice. After he was kicked out, he revealed that he was only there for Anna. Who would have guessed? And that he would revive the relationship. This was accomplished in a weird way. He was stalking her constantly, following her home from work, standing at her car when she went into a store, just being all around creepy. This was not only bound to her, though. He followed everyone else in the house, and he would even keep tabs on me. I saw him watching me in school on the parking lot, and we decided things had to change. One night, I visited them and told them about that event, and Anna decided enough was enough. She called Link, told him to fuck off, and she would call the cops if she saw him again. We all went to sleep, thought that would be the end of it. Oh boy, were we wrong. It was exactly 7 a.m, and I woke up to what sounded like thunder over and over again. The entire house was shaking. He was at the front door punching it, trying to get in. Because he was so crazy, I had carried a gun to their house the night before just in case of this. And I yelled, "I'm ready to kill you if you are ready to fucking die." He took this note seriously, and the cops were angry at me for threatening him. But due to the circumstances, they let me go. I was there a month later and was having a good time with them, playing video games, beating Jonathan in Mortal Kombat as I do. And then I saw him, looking at me through the window, and I freaked out. It was like a big-ass spider crawling up your arm. He bolted the moment I saw him, and I couldn't sleep that night. Nights ago, I visited him again, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I wanted a glass of chocolate milk and an ibuprofen as my head hurt, and I needed to sleep. So I went to the kitchen. He was there. He had a big knife in his right hand. I remember freezing, looking at him. His pupils looked dilated, and he freaked me out. He said, "Teutonic, it's not what it looks like. I'm here to stab Jonathan in the face." I just love her so much, and everything was fine before she intervened. I ended up attacking him and got the knife away before he ran. When the police finally caught him, they informed us they would hold him for a bit and give him a warning, but technically it was still his house as he was never evicted, and that we needed a restraining order to keep him away. Why are you writing this now, you might ask? Well, it's the only way I can sleep, to write about my experiences. Hopefully he will slip up and get arrested or something. But as long as he's around, I'm having trouble sleeping, and I'm scared for everyone that I care about's life. This all started when my mom met her new boyfriend, who I'll call Ray. This was when I was 14 years old. The first time he met me and my sisters, he looked at my mom and said, "Oh wow, I didn't know you had a gang," even though she already told him how many kids she had. So great first impression, right? He seemed like a normal guy at first, but after he moved in, we soon realized he was a hothead. He would yell a lot, throw some tantrums, but he wouldn't always sweet-talk his way around my mom to make everything seem okay again. And that's probably why she didn't dump him sooner. My mom has always been a bit immature, so I think it made it easier for him. But Ray found it really difficult to get along with me and my siblings. He would complain about every little thing we did wrong, and he started to accuse us of trying to ruin their relationship because of this. I have 3 sisters, and me and my younger sister were the wild ones. We were the ones that he had a problem with. He soon stopped us from seeing friends he didn't like. It was more strict with us than any other sisters. I realized he was crazy when he picked me up from school one day, which he really never did, and while driving home, he accused me and my sister of talking about him behind his back. I asked him what he meant, and he started going on about me not bothering to deny it because he has proof of it. He got home, he showed me a recorder and played back me and my sister complaining about him in our bedroom, so I knew that the thing was in our bedroom. Immediately, I shouted at him, "Why are you recording us in our bedroom?" We had a huge argument, and I immediately rang my mom and told her, but I think she didn't want to get on his bad side because she didn't say anything about it to him, which still annoys me. But I made him remove all the recorders from mine and my sister's room. When I was 16, I got a job at a chicken treat, and he had a big problem with that as well. The reason for this was because my boyfriend at the time worked there, and he thought I was just going there to mess around. So his way of making sure I didn't come and record me, and he did this for over a month. My manager even had to go out to him a few times to tell him he couldn't videotape the restaurant, which was mortifying. But every time my manager would go out to comfort him, he would say that he was proud of me and wanted to film me at the time, yada yada. Ray would purposely walk into my bedroom when I was changing, which really weirded me out, and every time I told him to stop or get out, he would say that we should have locked the door. My sister also told me he did the same thing to her, and we always had to change super fast. But I was pretty much done at this point, and moved in with my dad, who had just moved back from Nevada. My dad was pissed when I told him all about this, and he wanted to call police on him. He actually drove over there to confront him, but he was out, and my mom screamed at him to not call the police. My dad was pissed and drove around the block a few times, but Ray didn't turn up. Lucky for him. I've never seen my dad that angry before. They broke up soon after over something unrelated. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.